Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It is time to have a look at the changelog which came out today, and also the Datamine from Ishida. And the reason for this is they kind of mix and match together and paint a story of what's going on. It has been interesting following the Datamines and also the updates over the last week or so, especially after the update hit, because there was this idea that the update was rushed and everything wasn't kind of finished, and I feel like most things were probably finished, but as always after an update, there are things which changed. You can already see that they're still releasing devlogs of the previous update, which we will go over today, by the way. And also, at the same time, they are completely changing how a lot of flight models work for a lot of vehicles. The Su-27's changed, the Gripen's changed, the F-15's changed, and even the J-11. So all of the top bangers that they brought in, even post-update, have been updated, which is kind of nuts. But we start today in update 2.33.0.31 on the changelog, and the first thing for ground vehicles is the incorrect, less than calculated amount of secondary fragments when penetrating the armor of ground vehicles has been fixed. So basically, what was happening is you weren't doing enough post-pen damage after the actual penetration itself. So the cone of fragments that was supposed to do damage has not been. So all of the spawn liner, all of the spawn liner stuff which has been around the place now, when it comes to these ground vehicles, maybe now they'll be doing more damage to things. Or maybe the opposite will happen, where now the spawn liners will have more of an effect, because everybody else had reduced secondary fragments, and now they don't. The only real question is, how long has this been in the game? I saw a post from one of the kind of managers of the community talking about it yesterday, that they knew that there was an issue and that they were working on it. So let's see how effective those spawn liners are now. Let's see what happens to the meta of top tier. I know it's changed a lot already, mainly just down to the fact that, the shift in what is popular and also what is new in the game has changed. And that means that we'll have quite a rambunctious time, but overall it'll be fun to kind of follow. There was also a bug that caused a collapsed radar icon to be displayed on the interface in-game for vehicles with a target tracker. That's also been fixed, and a bug that caused the azimuth scale to be missing while not tracking a target for ground vehicles that have the target tracker but lack detection has been fixed too. There was also the missing select special weapon or ATGM button for the BMP2. That's been fixed as well, even though that was working on the dev server. So it's super odd when stuff like that happens, but luckily they fixed it. The main thing is now, post-penetration should be more damaging, and that will change quite a lot of things. First of all, when it comes to aircraft, their air combat tips for modern aircraft have been improved. Information about engaging ground targets has been added. It's actually been really nice that they added those little demos in for the modifications for high-tier ground vehicles, and then also at the same time just adding these little tips in here and there. I've seen a few of them in ground battles now. I wouldn't say they're very invasive. One of the problems is when it comes to these tips is making it so they don't just kind of turn up all the time, especially for people who play a lot. And I think the amount that they kind of turn up is completely fine, it's basically once in a blue moon at that point, and air combat tips should be the same. I think generally one of the ways it's being used right now is to try and keep your attention, try and keep your interest in the game going while like everything else is going on. Also in the AMX, the absence of the targeting or the target tracking ability for the targeting pod has been fixed. Absence of saving the tracking aiming points when returning the pod optics to the area with the previously tracked point has been fixed too. So the targeting pod on the AMX just wasn't working, which seems a little bit odd since it's kind of just a copy of what we've seen before. And it's always weird when stuff like that happens, just because you'd usually think stuff like that is just kind of copy-pasted, but for some reason it isn't, and I've never really understood why. There's also the MiG-23ML, MiG-23MLA, and also MiG-23MLD. There was a bug that caused the visual absence of the countermeasure pod under the fuselage when installing it through the secondary weapon menu. That's been fixed, which is good. And also, the JAS, the JAS-39A and C, the angular velocity of a steady turn has been reduced by 2 to 3 degrees per second, and maximum speed at sea level has been increased to Mach 1.2, and maximum speed at 12,000 meters altitude has been reduced to Mach 2. I've heard a lot of good things about the Gripen. It seems like it kept its flight model basically from the dev server, which means that it will just handle kind of like a toy plane. But now, once again, they're refining these things, and this is something which has been going on for a while, and I feel like they're just going to keep refining them so they don't feel as floaty, is probably the way to put it. Then again, these vehicles do have kind of crazy power from their engines, and also a insane power to weight, so maybe they're supposed to be like that. Kind of like with the Draken, where you can pull, of course, the Cobra. The Su-27, the display of stars on the wings has been corrected, so big ups to the Su-27. And also, there was a bug that caused the vehicles in the vehicle selection menu to not be added into a crew slot when selection has been fixed, which obviously is really bad. There was also a bug that might cause river flow in the wrong direction in the Tunisia and jungle locations. That's been fixed too. I mean, would that really be a bad thing? I mean, technically, I suppose with rivers, they're only supposed to flow one way, but what if you just made them kind of bodies of water, which were affected by, you know, the actual tidal waves? I mean, you could do that on jungle, mainly. I suppose if you're, like, looking at certain smaller areas, but even Tunisia, you could do the same. It would be kind of cool to have, you know, slight differences between them just based on, of course, where the moon is. A control preset for the Hori HPC 045U HOTAS flight control system and mount has been added, which is interesting. And also the readability of text hints and loading screens has been improved too, so you'll be able to see them even when you couldn't before. They just pop up at the bottom of the screen. I think generally it's completely fine the way that they all work. I'm really not, you know, I really agree with the fact that they're adding all of these tips and tricks to the game, because remember, one of the big things that, you know, is talked about quite a lot is the idea of demos, or the idea of kind of showing people how mechanics work. And, you know, one of the problems with doing that from a YouTube point of view, which a lot of people ask for you to do, is in 3 to 6 months, things can just be completely outdated. And it is very hard to maintain. Whereas when it comes to the Gaijin guys, they know the stuff that's going to be outdated. They know the stuff that they can kind of work on in that way. So therefore, once things are more stable, they can just kind of sort out these demos and go from there, which is good. The Datamine, done by Yoshida, does paint some similar stories. For example, the AMX has the POI and also the IR auto tracker. The USS Roanoke also had some armor changes, so we'll have to see what goes on there. There is some new texts which are kind of interesting. Basically, you have new opportunities available. So that one, to me, could indicate that they're trying to push people towards doing new events, or it could be a research thing, where it's like, hey, you've opened up a rank of a tech tree, you have new opportunities, you can play all of these different vehicles. There's also an extra one, which is random premium vehicle of the 7th rank. Are they just going to give away a random premium vehicle in the Warbond shop or something like that? Like, is this tied to like that New Year anniversary thing? Or New Year kind of celebration thing? It just seems weird. Why would you have something like that at the end of the day? And then you also have turn on and also refuse, which I think is to do with the decals, because remember what they're doing with the decals, they're making it so they're turned off automatically, and then you can turn them on later on. They also added all the decals for the winter event. Remember, the winter event does start tomorrow, so if you are interested in playing it, this would be the time. And there is some quite nice prizes. I'm looking forward to it. I kind of want to get the box stuff out the way first, just to kind of get it done and then move along. And then a metric ton of J11 and Su-27 changes, and also the JAS-39 changes too, showing that these vehicles are nowhere near finished in what they want to do with them. Every single one over the last week has been fundamentally changed how it flies. The only thing that's kind of stayed the same is the ordnance on them and how it's used. it is kind of nuts at the end of the day how much these things have changed. And also, as a last little tidbit, the other thing that they've done is the JS39C now has a different stat card. If you didn't know, they both actually used the A stat card for Sweden, which is kind of weird, but thank God they actually changed it so it didn't confuse people. So, a ton of changes. With all of the armor changes we've had over the last week or so, we now have a change to how armor reacts to rounds, and also a bunch of high-tier aviation changes on how all that stuff works. And then also, just a random premium vehicle sat around the place. Let's see what goes on over the next few weeks. It's going to be entertaining to see how this update kind of goes around. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Schnitzel Stroker, Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, B. Young, Opium Prime, Masonocrat, Lafouche, Alan Hacker, Sam Arslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.